Friends, I want to talk to you about Inuyasha.
I want to change the world 情熱絶やさずにだから未来へ手を伸ばせば輝けるはずさ It's wonderland.
Now, Inuyasha was not my first anime. My first anime ever, of course, was Dragon Ball Z, as most people were back in the 90s growing up. I remember I was playing with Legos when I must have been like 10 years old, and Adult Swim or Cartoon Network, whatever you want to call it, late night Cartoon Network, was on, and in the background was the episode of Inuyasha number 7. I will never forget this because it is my favorite episode, because it's the episode that introduced me to the show, where Inuyasha was fighting his older brother Sesshomaru for, his weapon, the Tetsaiga. Don't know anything about this show. This video is going to be very strange for you to hear. This show has had a colossal impact on my life, humongous. It's kind of embarrassing too at the same time, but I love this show nonetheless. It's not my favorite show compared to my favorite show of all time, which is Bleach. But if it wasn't for Inuyasha, I probably never would have gotten into Bleach. Bleach would have never really picked up under my radar. I've always loved Inuyasha for, the characters, the humor, the plot, which I know the plot's kind of weak in a lot of places, but it's still consistent. That's the good thing about it. It's one of those animes that has a very consistent plot. And, of course, the villain of the show, which I will get to in a moment. So, Inuyasha consists of a pretty good little cast of characters. We have Inuyasha, which is the half-demon, half-human. I know that's kind of like a trope in most animes nowadays, but it used to not be like that back in the day. Inuyasha was kind of like a dark horse anime, you know what I mean? So Inuyasha, he's half demon, he's half human. His father was a demon. His father makes no appearances in the anime, but I don't remember about the manga. I remember the manga used to be very, very graphic compared to the anime. I had a couple volumes of the manga when I was a teenager in high school or middle school or something. And, this is more of a girl's anime, not gonna lie, but at the same time, it's iconic as hell, and I love it regardless. So Inuyasha, he's basically, so the way the story goes is it takes place 50 years ago, which is funny because the timeline that they're in is like 500 years ago. So we're going to a flashback of a flashback, basically. Kikyo and Inuyasha are together, and they end up betraying each other. Kikyo shows up mortally wounded. You're going to see this if you watch the show. You're going to see this about 50 million times because the problem with Inuyasha is they always have to reference this specific scene any chance that they get, and it's just to fill in episode time. But she shows up really wounded, and she says, "Inuyasha, you traitor!" And she shoots him to a tree with a sacred arrow, and it doesn't kill him, but she had the power to kill him with it. It's just a long story. So he gets stuck to the tree. He's pinned into the same spot for 50 years. He falls into a deep sleep. It's over a jewel called the Sacred Jewel, which is pretty much the entire point of the show is they have to gather up all the pieces. It's kind of like Pokemon. You got to catch them all. You have to go around and collect all the little pieces of the jewel, combine them back together, and we get the Sacred Jewel. And each little fragment of the jewel supposedly can increase a demon's power by 10 times. There are demons in this anime, by the way. They're everywhere. This is feudal Japan, 500 years ago from the 1990s. I'm assuming this is when the timeline takes place. So, it's pretty wild, man. And Kagome is Kikyo, but reincarnated 500 years later. So they have a magic well, and she discovers the well, and she's the only one that can pass through it. So the well is kind of like a wormhole through time. So she kind of falls through it, and she goes all the way back to feudal Japan. She meets Inuyasha. They don't like each other. He tries to kill her because, she's got the sacred jewel. And they become friends because they kind of have to work together because she accidentally shattered the jewel. All the fragments kind of shot off like the Dragon Balls all over the planet, or feudal Japan, if we're being honest. And they have to, work together to go collect all the pieces again. She can tell where the jewels are. It's kind of like, you ever play Sonic Adventures and you have like those little missions with Knuckles and you have to go find the Chaos Emeralds? It's kind of the same power. She can tell where they're at. She can see where they're at too. If you're hiding them, she could see them. So he's the muscle, she's the radar. So they work together, they go collect all the things, and they end up like meeting a whole like pretty cool cast of characters. We got Shippo, which is just a little fox demon. He's basically like, oh, we have to have a kid for the team, so that's where Shippo comes in. I'm not a big fan of Shippo. I find him he's kind of funny, but I don't really enjoy him too much. Usually it's, I felt like I was too old whenever Inuyasha came out for me to really get Shippo. But we have the other characters such as Moroku, who is a monk, a very luxurious monk, who likes to basically sexually assault every single female he runs into. He would definitely be canceled in 2022. But he's also a human vacuum cleaner because he's got a cursed wind tunnel in his hand, which is anywhere he points his hand, he sucks it in. Pretty overpowered, right? It's like the 16th episode. I have a good memory for this shit. It's like the 14th or 16th episode where Moroku comes in, and literally anything he points his hand at, he just destroys, just kills. He is unstoppable with that. But there is a way to defeat him, though. So if he uses his wind tunnel too much, it'll actually split and it'll suck him in and kill him. But as he gets older, the wind tunnel actually widens bigger and bigger, so it will eventually consume him and kill him. So we're going to introduce Sango, who is the last member. She is actually probably the most badass of the group. She is a demon slayer. I know before the anime Demon Slayer, where she has a katana, but she also has probably my favorite anime weapon ever. It's a giant fuck-off boomerang. So she will throw this boomerang, it's made out of demon bone, and it just annihilates anything it comes in contact with, unless it's like plot relevance and then suddenly the boomerang doesn't work anymore. But it'll always come back to her no matter what. I have always loved boomerangs because of this. I've always wanted to buy one of those giant boomerangs, and I might actually do that now. Also, she has like an attack word for it. It's called Hiakos. It's been so long since I've seen this show. I'm making a lot of this video off of memory too, by the way, so bear with me. But it's just a really cool ability, and she's tactical. She's always prepared. She has mask on for in case like there's poison, smoke. She's just really good hand-to-hand combat, and on top of that, she has this little fire kitten named Kilala that'll actually turn into like this giant flaming saber-toothed two-tailed cat that she can fly on because apparently it can fly. It's like a wild flying mount. It just kind of makes no sense, but it can still take off anyways. So, and what do they all have in common? Well, I will tell you what they all have in common. We're in the day and age now where we kind of forget what some really good anime villains are. I think off the top of my head, two of the best anime villains ever was Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. I don't think Frieza will ever be topped. Well, I can give you a third one too. We have Lord Aizen from Bleach. Maybe a little biased right there, but Aizen is iconic as hell. And we have Light Yagami. Everyone knows Light Yagami. Even the people who aren't in the anime, don't like anime, they know who Light Yagami is. Everyone does. He's pretty iconic. He's probably one of the most iconic anime villains ever, because people who don't even watch anime knows who he is. Death Note's pretty big, dude. But one of the biggest, baddest villains ever that doesn't get a lot of shine anymore because Inuyasha came out in such an early time period where, like, the today anime fans, they probably never even heard of this show, which is very unfortunate because Inuyasha is in my top 5. It's golden. This is a golden anime. And that villain's name is Naraku. Now, Naraku's story is he was originally a bandit named Origumo. I might say the name wrong. It's been a long time since I've seen this. And he was really wounded, so Kikyo, who is the woman I was talking about in the beginning of the story, this is like 50 years before the 500 years before present time. He's wounded, she's taking care of him, he falls in love, but he's like, I'm burned really bad, I'm gonna die. And he's like, I will do anything to get her. So he sells his soul to a bunch of fucking demons. And they all just kind of fuse into him, and he becomes this new creature called Naraku. Now, Naraku is a bastard. He is devious as hell. Everybody in the show is after him. The entire cast of Inuyasha want to take this man down. And they do. They all go after him. Like, every time Naraku shows up, shit goes down. There's never a dull moment with this man. He's interesting. He's really cool. He's a bit of a coward, and that's the cool thing about him. He always runs away. But it's not like a Team Rocket blasting off again kind of run away. He just literally just laughs and just kind of leaves. Because it's not meant for him to fight yet. But whenever he does go toe-to-toe with somebody, it's pretty much guaranteed he's going to win. He's not all-powerful. because there are characters in the show like Inuyasha's older brother named Sesshomaru. I'll get to him in a second because that's a fan favorite. But Naraku is a force to be reckoned with. He's just... It's just every time you see him show up, he's a lying, manipulative piece of shit. He is garbage. He's a garbage human being. And not even a human being. He's a half demon too, just like Inuyasha, funny enough. So the villain of the show, his entire motivation is he wants to become a demon. He's not fully demon, he is half human. He just wants the Sacred Jewel, which is what the entire point of the show is, what they're going off to go capture the Sacred Jewel. He wants to collect it, combine it, and become a demon. Which he'll, I guess, cut out his human half. I don't know how he'll do that, because originally he was a demon anyways. So it's kind of like a... I don't even know what the word would be for that. It's just kind of confusing why, this happens. So, Naraku, every time he just shows up, it's just bad news, and it's just great. He's such a bastard. If you watch the show, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Naraku's a piece of work. Inuyasha's older brother is a man named Sesshomaru, who was probably... Him and Vegeta, like Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. When I first watched these shows, they were the characters I always wanted to base my personality off of, and I kind of, for the most part, did. Like, with Vegeta, I became very stubborn, very, full of myself, very arrogant. With Sesshomaru, I would usually like to stay calm and collected and think I'm above everyone else. It's just kind of his mentality. These are not good traits to have, by the way. You should, if you suffer from any of these traits, you should definitely break them. You're not cool like these anime characters are. It's kind of a life lesson. Today is my birthday. Fun fact, I am, as of right now, 32 years old. About 25 minutes ago. And it takes you a long time to realize, hey, you are not an anime, so you just need to grow up and realize that, Sesshomaru, his whole thing is he wants to take Inuyasha, his brother, he wants to take his weapon from him, which the weapon itself is pretty much an iconic thing for anime, and we'll get to that as well. But he can't pick it up because it's only meant for Inuyasha, so whenever Sesshomaru picks it up, it actually injures him. His hands will burn. It has a little protective barrier on it that prevents Sesshomaru from picking it up. Now, Sesshomaru is really cool because he's probably the most powerful character in the entire show. And you meet him very early in the show. You meet him in the 5th episode, I think it was. So whenever Sesshomaru pops in, you're just like, oh, okay. You don't really realize that this is the end-game character. It's he's the character in the anime where he starts off the anime already at max level. That's Sesshomaru. That's his entire character. He's like Saitama without being the parody or the one punch. So Sesshomaru doesn't really have any kind of difficulty fighting anybody. He just kind of beats anybody because that's just what he does. But he's really elegant. He's really feminine. Not like a lady boy or anything like that. But he's just really pretty. That's his whole thing. He's got the long flowing blonde, or not blonde, but white hair, ivory white hair. He's got really badass armor. Really calm, collected personality. The English dub for this is really phenomenal as well. A lot of people say that they don't like English dub, but this dub is just better than the Japanese 100%. There's no debating that. Sesshomaru, he is a full demon. He despises humanity. He doesn't like Inuyasha, which is his brother. He doesn't like him because of the fact that he's a half demon. There's a lot of characters in this show. I'm not going to cover everybody. I'm just going to cover the fundamental basics. He has a really good character arc as well because he gets injured. There's a lot of spoilers in this, by the way. He gets injured fighting his older brother, or fighting Inuyasha, which is his younger brother. And he's not close to death, but he's just kind of bleeding out a little bit. And this little girl named Ren shows up, and she's just kind of fixated on him because he's supposed to be so beautiful. So she tries to give him water. She tries to catch him fish. She's like a little 5-year-old girl. And he's just kind of he hates humans, but he's just kind of wow, she's trying to take care of me. What is this? So, she ends up dying, and he has the ability, kind of like a necromancer, he can kind of bring you back to life, but only one time. And then he just decides to let her follow him because, he's kind of touched that she would take this opportunity to try to help him. Him being a demon, humans should not interact with demons because demons in this, in this anime, they're quite anti-human. And she just travels with him. They just become really close. So for Inuyasha's weapon, it is a giant sword. I know every anime nowadays has these giant weapons, but Inuyasha was like the first one. It was really, I believe it was the first anime to have the giant weapon. And Bleach, you know, my favorite anime, kind of, I believe it was inspired. I believe Final Fantasy was inspired by Inuyasha as well, because after, you know, Inuyasha's giant katana was coming out, you know, then Cloud comes in with his giant Buster Blade. Inuyasha has the Tetsaiga, or I'm sorry, Ichigo has the Zangetsu. It just kind of goes on from there. Now we're in the point in anime where everyone has these giant colossal battle axes and things, you know, this is just what it became. But Inuyasha's katana is like this busted, chipped up little katana. And it actually transforms if he's using it to fight for humanity. Which he kind of utilizes it, and he just kind of does it whenever he wants later on in the show. But at first it would only activate if he was trying to protect somebody. So when he activates it, it becomes this giant tooth. It's like a giant freaking tooth with a mane for a handle guard. And it's capable of like firing off laser beams, tornadoes, diamonds. It can do all kinds of crazy shit. It can break through barriers. It can even send you to hell later on in the show, like at the very end of it. He can do all kinds of crazy things. Inuyasha is a really amazing show. I would recommend it to anybody, especially if you're a woman and you're trying to get into anime. This would be one I would recommend to you. There are some negatives with it, of course. It can be very annoying with all the recaps. It's just kind of like, I get it. Like 50 years ago, Inuyasha and Kagome, or, you know, Kikyo, they betrayed each other. Not really. It was a devious plan, but, you know, we got to rehash the same thing over and over and over. It does get annoying because there is a drinking game where you can take a shot every time you hear somebody say Inuyasha, Kagome, Inuyasha, Kagome, Kagome. Like, they say each other's names. That's like half the dialogue. It's just screaming each other's names. But it's a very charming show. It's very heartfelt. It's fucking hilarious. I will say that this is probably the funniest anime I've ever seen. And what got me wanting to make this video in the first place was the fact that I was watching some JoJo music. And for whatever reason, it came up on Inuyasha. And I was just like, yo, I love Inuyasha. I haven't watched it in so long. It's the GOAT. This is like one of the GOATs of anime. And I started listening to some of the music and started watching some of the scenes. It was like, you know, out of context videos. It just made me laugh. And I was like, God, I really miss this show. So what I'm going to do, if I can, if YouTube will allow me to do it, I want to start reacting to Inuyasha. I've seen it all. There's a new anime coming out. It's like the sequel anime. It's already out, actually. I haven't seen it, but I would like to watch it, if that makes sense. I would love to, you know, I would like to fill in with see how the sequel ends up. But first, I would like to actually watch the actual anime itself. Now, there is a little bit of a series I want to see before I get to this one first. If I can figure out how to go around YouTube's like weird upload, you can't like upload this anime stuff, you'll get blocked or banned or whatever. I will definitely do that. But it would be super freaking fun to come back and revisit. I haven't watched Inuyasha in years. Years. I love it. Maybe I'll be the Inuyasha guy on YouTube. I don't know. That could be cool, right? But I don't know. If you've never seen this anime, let me know what you think down below. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you don't like Inuyasha, I guess let me know as well. I would like to know what the criticisms are. Maybe I'll agree with you, maybe I'll disagree with you, we'll see. But yeah, I will forever stand on this, saying that this is one of the big goats of anime. It's up there with Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Death Note, Gundam. Need I say more? And as always, I will see everybody in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.